6:45, this is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Danushka Madhavala, read by Soundithavam. The Mahanayakathera of the Malvatta chapter hails India for support in getting the IMF's second tranche. The President said the government has decided to provide loan facilities to small entrepreneurs. Minister Manusha Nanayakara expressed hope that the new employment bill would be able to implement it by the beginning of next year. People residing on the banks of the Valave River have been warned to remain vigilant. The decennial population and housing census commenced at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. In foreign news, hundreds of foreign nationals and injured leave Gaza as the border finally opens. In sports, the ICC Cricket World Cup match between Sri Lanka and India will be played this evening at Wankhede. The Mahanayak of the Malvatta sect of the Siam Nikaya, Most Venerable Tibbatuwave Sri Siddhartha Sumangala Thera, told the visiting Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman that they appreciate the support of the Indian government extended to Sri Lanka to receive the second tranche of the International Monetary Fund loan. The prelate said that the entire Sri Lankan people should pay gratitude to the Indian Finance Minister for her support in representing Sri Lanka and presenting the facts to the IMF. The Mahanayakathera expressed these views when the Indian Finance Minister visited the Malvatta Mahavihara last morning. The Mahanayakathera said that in the face of the economic crisis, the government of India had always supported Sri Lanka as a brotherly country by providing loans, and Sri Lankans look forward to the same cooperation in the future. The National Industrial Excellence Awards ceremony was held yesterday at the Nelum Pokuna Theatre under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The main objective of this ceremony was to promote the best industrial products that have contributed to the economy of the country. Further, this process will also recognize and honor the best industrialists for their production and contribution towards the revival of the economy. The Ministry of Industry and the Industrial Board of Sri Lanka have jointly organized this awards ceremony. The awards were given to 21 main industrial fields and 67 core industrial productions. Around 300 recipients were given gold, silver and bronze medals. Addressing the audience, President Ranil Wickremesinghe said the government has decided to provide loan facilities to small entrepreneurs. The central bank has the full authority of printing currency notes. However, this process has been brought under control during the last few months. The government plans to increase the revenue by next year. The VAT has been increased up to 18%. The crucial and difficult decision was taken for the benefit of the future generation of this country. The President also said that he took over the reins of the country in order to revive the stalled economy. Anyone can easily find mistakes and level allegations against the government, but it is difficult to overcome the challenges and take the country forward. The Cabinet of Ministers has directed the legal draftsman to prepare a new employment bill based on a concept paper prepared by the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment and a set of recommendations made by a committee chaired by Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. The Department of Government Information recently stated that the Labour and Foreign Employment Minister Manusha Nanayakara has prepared a concept paper for the formulation of a new employment bill in consultation with the relevant parties, including trade unions and employers. Minister Manusha Nanayakara expressed hope that the new employment bill would be able to be implemented by the beginning of next year. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. People residing on the banks of the Valave River have been warned to remain vigilant and refrain from using the water body in light of the rising levels in the Udavalave Reservoir. Accordingly, the Mahaveli Development Authority warned that the sluice gates of the Udavalave Reservoir may be opened at any time as water levels keep rising owing to the heavy downpour. Thus, people residing in the low-lying areas near the Valave River, Udavalave Reservoir and the Ambalantota area have been advised to exercise caution. Meanwhile, the Irrigation Department reported that minor flooding has been reported in some areas around the Attanagallu Oya and Kuda Oya. Milk powder, which is essential consumer food commodity, has been reduced by Lanka Satosa from yesterday. Lanka Satosa has taken steps to reduce the price of 400-gram Satosa full cream milk powder packets across the country in order to provide relief for the Sri Lankan consumers who are undergoing economic hardships. Accordingly, the price of a 400-gram Lanka Satosa milk powder packet has been reduced to 948 rupees, and the reduction is 22 rupees. Milk powder packets can be purchased by the consumers from any of the Lanka Satosa supermarkets located across the country at the newly reduced price from November 1st, Lanka Satosa said. The final rites of cricket's beloved cheerleader Percy Abesekara will be held this evening. For more than 7 decades, Percy Abesekara stood as the one-man cheer squad for the Sri Lankan cricket, his lion flag waving proudly at matches. At the age of 87, Uncle Percy passed away, leaving a significant gap in the hearts of cricket lovers. His body rests at a private parlour in Borella until 4 p.m, followed by cremation at the Borella General Cemetery. His absence is deeply felt in the cricketing world, leaving behind his witty cricket rhymes and his iconic lion flag, which won't flutter the same way during Sri Lankan matches. As a touching tribute to his unwavering support, both Sri Lankan and Indian cricketers in the ICC World Cup cricket match at Wankhede will don black armbands in honour of Uncle Percy. This gesture marks the high esteem in which he was held by the cricketing community. With that, we conclude local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
The decennial population and housing census commenced at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. Notably, the Presidential Secretariat assumed the distinction of being the first edifice catalogued in this census. What sets this year's census apart is its fusion of modern technology with conventional paper documents for data collection. The deployment of tablet computers, internet connectivity, and geospatial technologies is a standout feature. This method, known as computer-assisted personal interviewing, is being employed for the first time. Sri Lanka's population and housing census is conducted every 10 years and is overseen by the Department of Census and Statistics. The previous census took place in 2012. Interestingly, the inaugural legally mandated census in Sri Lanka transpired on March 27, 1871, marking a pioneering scientific endeavour among South Asian nations. And that came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. The number of dengue cases in several areas of the Western Province and in the Kandy district of the Central Province has increased. The National Dengue Control Unit says most of the breeding grounds of mosquitoes have been identified around schools and religious places in many areas. The director of the National Dengue Control Unit, Dr. Nalin Aryaratna, said that more than 66,000 dengue cases have been reported in Sri Lanka so far this year. That came to you in Watchlight, and we move on to a bulletin of world news. Making headlines this morning, hundreds of foreign nationals and injured leave Gaza as border finally opens. Political violence grips Bangladesh as election looms. And Donald Trump Jr. testifies in New York civil fraud trial. More than 400 people have left Gaza as the Rafah crossing to Egypt opens to civilians for the first time in more than 3 weeks. 335 foreign passport holders and 76 injured Gazans have been able to leave so far, Palestinian officials say. British and US passport holders are among those who have exited the territory, according to officials. US President Joe Biden says the opening of the crossing is a result of intense and urgent diplomacy. In Gaza, phone and internet services are completely cut. The provider Paltel says Israel has been bombing Gaza since the 7th of October. Hamas attacks that killed 1,400 people, with 239 people kidnapped as hostages. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says more than 8,700 people have been killed since Israel's retaliatory bombing began. Weeks of mounting political tension have erupted into protests and bloodshed in Bangladesh, leaving the country on edge ahead of general elections due in January. Several senior opposition leaders were arrested last Sunday, a day after a massive rally against the government turned violent, resulting in the deaths of at least 2 opposition supporters. The rejuvenated main opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party has intensified protests, calling on Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign. The BNP and its allies want a neutral interim government ahead of the general elections, arguing that free and fair polls are not possible under Mrs. Hasina. The government, led by her Awami League, has rejected this demand. The BNP rally in the capital Dhaka attracted tens of thousands of people, one of the biggest gatherings seen there in a decade. But things soon turned violent. The eldest son of former President Donald Trump has said he did not work on the financial statements at the center of a civil fraud trial that threatens the family's property empire. Donald Trump Jr., 45, appeared relaxed in the New York City court as he cracked jokes and denied wrongdoing. His siblings Ivanka and Eric Trump are due to testify in the coming days. The judge has already found the Trump organization exaggerated its wealth and falsified business records. The civil trial will determine what penalty should be imposed. New York Attorney General Letitia James, a Democrat, is seeking a fine of $250 million and a ban on the former president doing business in his home state. Back to the headlines of the world news. Hundreds of foreign nationals and injured leave Gaza as border finally opens. Political violence grips Bangladesh as election looms. And Donald Trump Jr. testifies in New York civil fraud trial. That concludes this bulletin of world news.
Development news.
Chairman Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau Chalaka Gajabahu said for the first time tourism has been elevated as the second highest foreign exchange earner to Sri Lanka after foreign remittances. The number 2 slot, which is apparel exports, have dipped by around 20%, and this has helped Sri Lanka to be made the second highest foreign exchange generation industry to Sri Lanka. He said that they have also upgraded their arrival target from 1.5 million to 1.7 million as they expect over 200,000 to 250,000 in the months of November and December. The free visa on arrival will also help to boost the country's arrival target by 10%. That came to you in development news.
Moving on with sports news.
The 33rd match of the ICC Cricket World Cup will be held this evening between Sri Lanka and India at Wankhede. The match is scheduled to begin at 2:15. Sri Lanka, who made it to this World Cup via the qualifier route, are struggling to stay alive. They have just 4 points from 6 games and are coming off the back of a loss to Afghanistan. Another defeat will push them to the brink of elimination. India will once again be without Hardik, who is unlikely to return before India's final league match against the Netherlands. That's sports news. We take a look at business news next.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Disney has announced that it will buy the remaining stake in streaming service Hulu in a widely expected move. The company said on Wednesday it would acquire the 33% stake it does not own from TV giant Comcast. This would give Disney full ownership of the streaming service and the ability to incorporate it into its own Disney Plus platform. Disney has been locked in battle with other streamers as profits have fallen. Completing its takeover of Hulu is expected to cost some $8.6 billion, Disney said in a statement. That's business news, economic news up next.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
On to economic news, the Panama Canal will make more cuts to the number of ships using the waterway due to the worst drought in over 70 years, authorities say. The Panama Canal authorities say it has been forced to make the decision due to the driest October since records began in 1950. The El Nino weather phenomenon has contributed to the severe drought, the ACP says. It is expected to increase the cost of shipping goods around the world. That's economic news.
Weather report.
Showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in most of the provinces of the island after 2 p.m. Heavy showers about 100 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, Sabragama, central and Uva provinces and also in the Gaul and Matara districts. Showers will occur in the coastal areas of the eastern province and in Hambantota during the morning too. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central, north central and Uva provinces during the morning. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The Mahanayaka There of the Malwata chapter hails India for its support in getting the IMF's second tranche. The government has decided to provide loan facilities to small entrepreneurs. Minister Manusha Nanayakara expressed hope that the new employment bill would be able to be implemented by the beginning of next year. People residing on the banks of the Valave River have been warned to remain vigilant. The decennial population and housing census commenced at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. Hundreds of foreign nationals and injured leave Gaza as border finally opens. And the ICC Cricket World Cup match between Sri Lanka and India will be played this evening at Wankhede. With that, we conclude this morning's news broadcast, and now it's back to your hostess, Geetanjali, across the glass pane. A very good morning to you, Geetanjali, and it's all yours to keep our listeners well entertained.